So let's start off with a little audience participation. I think we've probably all been up all night, watching the Patriots, getting over the Patriots, the AMA highlights. It was a busy evening. So show of hands, how many of you have traveled for business or pleasure over the past couple months? There you go. How many of you use some kind of a website or app to help you plan your travel? All right. And how many of you have used TripAdvisor? All right, great. So you want all those hands, even if you haven't. This is probably not the time to announce it. So we'll try it again. How many of you have used TripAdvisor? There you go. Okay. So Barbara, I'd love to start off by asking you to just talk about the TripAdvisor story.
Yeah.
And how it all began.
So TripAdvisor was actually founded here in the Boston area. About 13 years ago, Steve Koffer, one of our co-founders, was trying to plan a trip for he and his wife to go to Mexico. And he was online, he was writing all these different programs to try to find like the real scoop on things. Because I don't know if you guys remember planning a trip back in 1999, 2000, you had the internet, which was such a exciting tool, right? You all felt like self-serve travel agents, but it was the same picture of every hotel. It was the same pool shot. It was the same sort of list of amenities pulled out of Sabre, which is sort of the back-end system. And he of course wanted to find it, so he actually found a blog that had a picture of sort of a ratty old beach chair on a beach at the hotel that was supposed to be so gorgeous. And he finally was able to make a decision, but that was sort of the catalyst where he thought there's got to be a better way, right? There's all this content around the web, and he wanted to come up with a way to aggregate it so people could get sort of an unvarnished real insight into what actually the real trip experience would be like. So that was sort of the very beginning. It was at a pizza shop in Needham, Costas Pizza. This is the first office of TripAdvisor. Not joking, it's still there. We have some Needham folks, so they know. And they assembled at the upstairs of this pizza shop. About 20 folks were there. And it kept growing and growing. So now we actually are about 2,000 employees. We are a global company, 260 million unique visitors. We are in 21 languages. We have 34 points of sale, meaning TripAdvisor is translated at different countries around the world in 34 countries. So we've come a long way since the smell of pizza wafting into every crevice of our clothing.
So that's amazing. Think about 13 years ago, there was no YouTube, right? There was no Wikipedia. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was no Toyota Prius. It's pretty amazing how, but yet in such a short period of time, TripAdvisor has really disrupted and influenced the entire travel industry. So can you talk a little bit about how you've influenced the travel industry in that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest change TripAdvisor has created in the travel industry is around user-generated content. So Amazon back in 2000 was really the only one doing reviews at scale. So it was books, right? And that was sort of a revolution. But there was no one in travel doing reviews. And TripAdvisor, that notion of being able to give your real experience, your actual on-the-ground notes, was really revolutionary, and people really gravitated towards it. And if you think about guidebooks, which was the only model, guidebooks are great for itinerary planning, but they're instantly out of date, right? As soon as they're published, they're old. And they're one singular point of view. And so the notion that you could get thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people to create a worldview on what an experience was really like really resonated with people. So it was quite disruptive. And now what's interesting is that travel reviews are pretty ubiquitous. Every travel site has realized they have to take advantage of reviews because it's an essential metric for conversion for them. I mean, without reviews, people don't feel comfortable, and they'll go find them elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. So there are so many great user-generated content sites that haven't yet figured out how to monetize.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how TripAdvisor makes money?
Yes. It's funny. A lot of people have no idea how we make money, and one of the actual misconceptions is that hotels pay to be on TripAdvisor, or they can influence in any way about how their reviews come up. So actually, it's completely neutral and unbiased. We actually make all our money from, or most of our money from travel partners like Orbitz or Booking.com or Priceline, Expedia, where we have a CPC model. So if you look on the screen, you can see those sort of orange prices around the Charles Hotel. So once you click on one of those prices, we get a cost per click. And the reason that people are willing to pay nice cost per clicks for us is because we're delivering incredibly qualified people to them. Because by the time someone clicks that button, they have looked at thousands of candid photos, they've read reviews, they're very engaged with what that hotel is, and they know it's the right hotel for them. So the majority of our revenue actually comes from checking prices, and we get our revenue from our partners. And then we have a display business, obviously, and some subscription businesses through our business listings product. But the vast majority is this simple business model, which is a media model, that has been very successful for us. We have, last year we had about $750 million in revenues, and we're obviously on a big growth rate this year, and we have a $13.5 billion market cap. So a lot of value has been created by that little check prices button.
And a public company.
And a public company, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that differentiates TripAdvisor is it's truly a community. So can you talk about the importance of the community?
Yeah, I mean, I always say to our team, our community is our lifeblood. Without them, we are just another platform. So we have a remarkable community. We have 57 million people worldwide that we mail to through our email base, and they're all around the world. And we do our emails in 21 languages because they all speak different languages, which I don't know if there are any German speakers in the room, but that's always the most challenging language for us because German character counts are so long that every email that works in English completely cracks when you try to translate into German. But we really nurture our community. We recognize that people come to TripAdvisor because the community is already installed. So we get all these network effects. But without sort of nurturing them and growing them, we really don't have a great business. And so that's really a key focus for everything we do.
So you get over 80 contributions of content per minute. So if just to put that in perspective, the human heart beats 80 times a minute. So if you think about the velocity and the scale of that, it's mind-boggling, and it keeps rising every year. So how do you keep that content coming? How do you encourage that?
So we have been growing at a tremendous pace, as you know, and it's actually not an accident because I think when I started, we were at 40 contributions per minute. So we've been really focused on how to grow that number. So we actually sort of went back and looked at some gaming practices that some really interesting gaming companies were doing, and we looked at sort of behavioral psychology about what motivates people to do things. The other thing we did is we went and did research globally and figured out in different markets, why do people participate in TripAdvisor? So in France, it was very much like socialité, égalité, right? It's like giving back to the greater good. And in the United States, it was very much about pay it forward. I got a lot out of this site, and I want to give back. And the pay it forward actually probably is the most common motivation for people. But it's not enough. You have to sort of stay top of mind for people and figure out how to get them coming back. And so we basically created a whole game platform about 3 years ago where we let people get different levels. So if you write 3 reviews, you get a little star that says you're a reviewer. When you write 5 reviews, you become a senior reviewer. And when you write 50 reviews, you become a top contributor. And so there's different levels and scales, and you can get them by category. And it's funny, you would think that an email telling you you're going to get a little widget from us is not going to be a motivator. But in fact, since we started doing these badges, we've increased our contribution by 400%. And we really are in touch with people. We are constantly emailing them and motivating them and praising them and rewarding them. This is an example of an email we send out where we tell you how many readers around the world have seen your review, how many helpful votes you've gotten, and where your readership is. And, people just don't get enough thank yous and praise in their daily life. And so this type of email resonates so well with people. We get so much good feedback on this program. And again, from a business perspective, we love it because that flywheel of content contribution just gets faster and faster. The other thing we do is we recognize that not everybody is a review writer. So, how many people in the room have written a review? That's a good group. Thank you. So thank you to you all. In general, obviously, when you have 260 million people coming to the site every month, not all of them are writing reviews. In fact, only a tiny percentage of that write reviews. But they do identify with the brand. And how do we get them to be able to feel like they're participating without having to write a review? And so we actually have helpful votes where someone can click the button and sort of engage in a light way with the community. And then in an offline world, we love to see our brand out there. We'll talk about offline later, but we've been doing sort of this type of offline for a while, which is sending out thank yous to the community. So I hope you all got your luggage tag today, and I hope you travel with it over the holidays. But we love to see our luggage tags in market. We send out little magnets for the car, like you'd see a country magnet, which people are starting to get now. We send out little totes. We send out lots of gifts to our reviewers so they can identify with the brand and on their travels have their brand with them.
Great. I did notice a few people, when you said free, luggage tag went. Because they apparently didn't get one, so stop by the name tag. Is that where they were? Where we were giving out the name tags? Yeah? Okay.
They're leather. They're nice.
Yeah.
We always send out the leather.
Yeah.
But nothing but the best for this group.
Nothing but the best.
Nothing but the best.
Okay, so you guys have a big partnership with Facebook?
We do.
Can you talk about how that helps people plan their perfect trip?
Yeah. Facebook is a really great partner for us. We started working with them, 5 years ago with instant personalization. We're one of 7 partners of Facebook who enable us to basically use their social network to let you have a personal experience by seeing your friends' network when you come onto TripAdvisor. So we know that people love the wisdom of crowds, but when they can see also their friends layered on top of that, it just makes the whole booking experience easier. So, for example, if I'm looking at Paris, because TripAdvisor folks travel so much, I see maybe 25 hotels where friends have stayed, and then friends of friends is the second layer. So let's say you don't have a group of friends that travel a lot, but your broader network in Facebook, probably you have 1,200 to 2,000 in your network of friends, and you get to see their reviews as well. So that's been very successful because I think about a third of our content now is Facebook connected in the sense that someone has a connection on the network that you can see other people's reviews. So people really love that. It helps you when you're planning a trip to somewhere you haven't been and you just get a context for hotels because it can be rather overwhelming to sort of parse through what might be a hotel that you'd be comfortable staying at.
So smart. And by the way, if you're not Barbara's friend, you want to be Barbara's friend because she's been everywhere. All right, so let's talk about the unique culture at TripAdvisor. You mentioned your co-founder and CEO, Steve Kaufer, and he's been quoted as saying that TripAdvisor's culture is all about smart people collaborating and thriving on a speed wins mentality, which probably sounds familiar to everybody in this room. Tell us about this culture and how speed wins is woven into the day-to-day at TripAdvisor.
So Speed Wins is something that is on our founder's door, scrawled, and it really defines how we run the business. So, one of the reasons we have been successful in our after 13 years still function like a startup is we never ever stop innovating and we never stop pushing on speed. So, we do weekly releases, we do full stack engineering. Everything is about keeping that startup culture and moving very fast. Every project we launch, we look at time to market. And we also don't focus on perfection. So we are happy with 80% perfection, and we test our way up from there. Sometimes we're happy at less than that because we do lots of testing. We can roll out a feature to a small group of people and see how it works without showing the larger group what the feature is like. So we are constantly optimizing and testing. It can be a really incredible pace. I mean, I came from San Francisco. I was at 2 startups that became bigger companies, and I thought those were fast-moving companies, and I feel like it's a little bit like I had a Toyota Camry in San Francisco. It was very functional. It had a little pep. And now I drive like a Ferrari, and it's a little bit of a rough ride, and it's really fast and high performance. So, it's definitely like a very high speed organization. I hope I'm not scaring any new hires in the room. But it's an exciting place to work, but it's definitely for a 2,000 person company, it runs very much like a startup. So super lean, fast moving, and flat.
Yeah, I think people like being in a Ferrari better than being in I think it's safe to say people like being in a Ferrari better than a Toyota Camry. So what do you do to foster that culture of innovation to keep that going?
So it's a pretty flat organization, which helps. So no one is that far from someone's door where they can talk about an idea. The other thing is because we launch so many projects every week, there's always an opportunity to test out great ideas. It's not like a good idea will come up and we'll say, okay, well, that's great, but we have an 18-month queue, and so we're going to test that in 2015. I mean, we really think about things at the quarterly basis and how quickly we can launch these things and prove out their value. The other thing about innovation is we look outside of industry to see what's happening. So, some of the smartest things are happening outside of travel. Most smart things are happening outside of travel. I mean, travel is not a industry that has been pushed to innovate because it is so profitable. So if you look at the Expedias of the world or the Booking.coms of the world, I mean, they're optimizing on their current displays, but they're not the ones bringing out the big new ideas. And so we look outside of industry. I mean, Facebook's very smart. I mean, we look at Foursquare was smart with check-ins a while back. Mobile around local recommendations, near me now. I mean, we've really looked to see what is the best in breed outside of our industry and then say what's the use case for travelers and how do we make it resonate with them. Mm-hmm. So we definitely are, we believe imitation is a good form of flattery, but we put our own twist on what that new technology is to make it relevant for TripAdvisor folks.
So what's the biggest challenge you face with that continuous innovation?
I mean, the challenge is scale. Mm-hmm. So it's a blessing and a curse, our size, because when you have so much scale globally and on a membership basis and on a customer monthly basis, to get big ideas that have scale and can also translate globally is very hard. So someone might have a great idea, but maybe it impacts 20,000 consumers or 40,000 consumers, and those are just small numbers for us. And so I think the challenge is, what are the big ideas that we can build and scale? And that's really, I think, the biggest challenge, because sometimes those little small nuggets have a harder time seeing the light of day.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's shift a little bit. We've seen TV recently, recently, from TripAdvisor. For a company that's been around for 13 years, why have you just started to advertise on TV now?
We have been really lucky that we've been able to be around for 13 years using great earned and owned media. So we have great PR channels globally. We have great SEM, great SEO. Just a lot of sort of traffic hack has been something we've gone deeper in. But all of those are a little bit one note, with the exception of PR. It's hard to tell the longer story and get that brand emotion out there through those channels. It's possible, but I think I think that TV is an incredible medium for telling a longer story about the brand. And so we had seen a very successful competitor in Europe do TV extremely well. And we thought, hey, you know what? Here's a brand that has taken TV and gone from 0 to 60 very quickly using TV. And so we thought, let's try this channel, which we hadn't found before. We got some great partners lined up, and we have had a really exciting time testing. So why don't we show the ads? Mm-hmm. These are our U.S. spots. We also have a spot that's running in Europe and Argentina. That is a spot that we tested in the U.S., and so we have basically 2 sets of creative running, but this is our U.S. creative.
Millions of reviews to help you choose.
Toothpaste, sir.
Thank you.
Millions of reviews to help you choose. Compare prices across hundreds of travel sites. Just one click with TripAdvisor. How would you rate a travel site that instantly finds the lowest price on the hotel you want? Compare across hundreds of travel sites and save with TripAdvisor.
So those were the first two actually around as 30s, but those were 15s that you saw here. And then, so the first two are more of our brand spots, which are less sort of tactically describing one of our product features. The last two were the introduction of Meta, which is that ability to show pricing and availability with one click. We actually just launched Meta this year. It was a really big change for us because before we used to have these pop-ups, which I can say now were extremely annoying. And
now that we're done with them.
Now that we're done with them. And so now we have on one screen pricing and availability. And so that was a really big change for us on the business side. And from the consumer side, obviously that was a much better experience. So we were introducing Meta there. And as you can see, we have those bubble ratings all over our site. And those sort of are the shortcut for the brand in the sense that that is how people think about TripAdvisor, the bubbles as opposed to stars, and those are the community's ratings. And so we really decided to lean into the bubbles for this US campaign, basically to get people to associate TripAdvisor with the bubbles, with the community, and that every experience counts, which we think is a very salient message for travelers.
So can you talk about how they're doing, early results?
Early results, too soon to tell, because we just are wrapping up the test now for the U.S., but we're cautiously optimistic.
Good, good. So one other thing I want to talk about was you recently broke ground on what will become your new global headquarters in Needham. And what influenced you to stay in the Metro West area?
We really love the Boston area. We love the talent here. I mean, the universities are great, but plus there's just really smart people who understand tech, who understand media. We've just had tremendous success hiring fantastic people, and if the Red Sox keep doing what they're doing, we're in good shape. So it's great, and we basically picked a new site in Needham, which is this new technology corridor. It's only about a 3-minute drive from our current office, so not that disruptive for folks. But it's going to be an exciting space. We're hiring 400 people in addition when we will move into this space. So we're just growing so much right now that our offices now just need more space, and that's really the impetus for the new headquarters.
I'm very happy to hear that you're staying here as the chairman of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. 400 more jobs.
Exactly, yeah.
So you getting a sweet new office?
I don't know. I mean, we in general, we like to have our offices be collaborative and open space, but also you sometimes have to get on the phone. So it'll probably be a hybrid, but I hope I have the view over 128.
She's getting a sweet new office. All right, you up for a little lightning round?
Yes.
All right. So, Barbara, where haven't you been that you would love to visit, and in Adam Levine's arms does not count? Where's Ed? Sorry, Ed. Barbara's husband's here. Sorry, Ed. So where haven't you been that you'd like
I
to
actually
visit?
haven't been to Australia. So I think that is a great trip, maybe in a few years. We have 2 little kids, so I think that would be really exciting between the Great Barrier Reef and the animals, and just, I've heard Sydney's a phenomenal city.
Even I've been to Sydney.
I know.
Come on,
I know,
Barb.
I know.
Get on it. All right, is there any place that you're dying to go back to that you've visited?
Yeah, I would love to go back to Zanzibar in East Africa. It's off the coast of Tanzania. Anyone been to Zanzibar? No? Okay. So you're all invited back with me. It's really this incredible island where it's a mix of sort of Muslim, Swahili culture, and it's just really extraordinary. It's very tranquil. It's very beautiful. It has incredible history. And it's one of those places where it's very otherworldly.
Great. Okay, strangest trip you've ever taken. Mine was at a Grateful Dead concert, but that was like 30 years ago. The statute of limitations is up on that. So, strangest trip.
The strangest trip was a trip my husband and I took. We started out in Luang Prabang in Laos, and we took a little tiny boat up the Mekong to a village. And if anyone knows Laos's history, it was under a lot of during the Vietnam War, it was sort of a staging ground. And our little shack we stayed in that night had no electricity, no running water, and sort of was decorated with missile casings that were left over from conflict. So
Romantic.
very romantic.
Very romantic.
And we also were told not to walk anywhere off the pass because it's very sad, but there's unexploded ordinances there. But that was definitely not a new take on romance.
All right, what's your favorite foreign food?
I love foreign foods. I love food. I think my favorite foreign food, or that you don't get around here, is poisson cru, which is a Tahitian dish. It's big chunks of raw tuna with lime and little chilies, and I have a nod here, poisson cru, and coconut. It's just the most delicious, fresh thing to have, and it's very sort of organic to the islands in Tahiti. It's pretty amazing.
All right, what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
The weirdest thing is, actually was in the States. I had rattlesnake and alligator. And alligator tastes like chicken. And rattlesnake tastes like tuna salad. But I think that's probably the weirdest thing.
All right, what's your go-to minibar item? And by the way, has anybody noticed this disturbing trend against minibars? No more minibars. What's up with that? Can you comment on this? No.
No, it's
minibars
a revenue
are
source.
Yeah, I don't get it. I even read an article in the Wall Street Journal about it because I was so disturbed by it. I had to Google it. Like, what the hell? I mean, I just like a little Perrier before I go to bed. So what's your go-to minibar item?
Cashews.
Oh, very good. Yeah. And the cashews, little Perrier.
Yeah. And yours is Perrier?
Cashews and Perrier.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. All right. So what are some unexpected things people might learn from content on TripAdvisor?
I mean, I think the great thing about TripAdvisor, which is why we're so successful, is that unvarnished truth, right? It's the things you're not going to find in a guidebook or, by standard brochures. So you'll find out who, the person at the bar who is the best bartender, and you'll find out which room has the best view, and you'll find out what spot on the beach gets the sun the longest. So you find all these little gems, these little hidden details, or even better is like what, great taco shack to go to down the street. So it's all this stuff that makes your trip special and not, run-of-the-mill. People want unique experiences, and I think TripAdvisor gives folks the opportunity to read the reviews, and you find out those things that other people have done and recommend to you, or there's always that sense of you can go discover it yourself and add it back.
Okay, what's the most remarkable piece of content that you've seen, good, bad, or ugly, on TripAdvisor?
It's actually a fun part of my job because I can just read reviews all day and be working. And I really love reading reviews because I love travel. So there's always funny things happening around the office where we'll send around some funny reviews. But one I found, which I just thought was so funny, was there's a very, very, very upscale group of resorts called the Aman Resorts, which probably most of you have heard of. And, they range in the $1,200 to $2,000 a night category. And there's one in Turks and Caicos, and this guy had written a review. And it was just going on and on. It was, one of the longest reviews I've ever seen. And he had lots of complaints. He didn't like the bumpy ride from the airport. The driver drove too fast. It was too hot. It was too sunny. He waited too long for the iced coffees. But his biggest gripe was that he found it offensive that the hotel allowed private yachts from the guests to be parked right in front of the beach.
Oh.
And he thought it was incredibly rude. It was redeemed slightly by the complimentary and surprise Mary J. Blige concert that happened the next night on New Year's, which I think would have probably just transcended the whole thing, but not for him. And then the next morning he was complaining with the iced coffees again. So sort of like a line-by-line, moment-by-moment trip. And I thought, this guy just spent some extraordinary amount of money on this trip. And the things that he valued, you know, Mary J. Blige, no.
For a minute.
More iced coffees, yes. So I think that was probably good feedback for the Aman Resort.
That is the 1% of the 1% of
Yes.
the 1%.
The crazies of the crazies,
Yeah.
what they value, iced coffee.
How many ice cubes?
Exactly.
So do we want to go for some questions, audience questions, Mary?
Yes. A couple of comments. One, there'll be questions. You can raise your hand. We have people here in the audience with microphones. Two, there are luggage tags, and they will be given out to you when you leave today. So thank you very much to Barbara. Thank you to Karen. Barbara, I'll join you in Zanzibar.
Yay!
Karen, a concert with you seems kind of interesting too, so put me on the list.
Mind expanding.
Grateful Dead in Zanzibar.
Now you're talking. All right, who's got the first question?
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
I'm a senior contributor on TripAdvisor.
Congratulations,
Yes,
and thank
very much.
you.
2 luggage tags for
Yeah,
you.
oh, thanks. Love the site, use it a lot. Really like the constant feedback as a contributor that I get via the email programs and all that.
Okay.
I was wondering, as you are growing the business and moving into, you know, private home rentals and other things like that, more and more people writing, contributing. How do you keep the crap off the site? Like the crazies who you have to read that he didn't get 4 ice cubes in his, I
Yeah.
can filter that, but what about,
You know,
the
it's
people
funny.
that just want to get on there quick and read stuff and they don't want to have to prune through all the nutcases?
A great question. It's funny. For people who stay at the Aman Resort, they actually like those types of reviews because that's the detail they want. So for that segment, I think actually that's an appropriate review. In terms of filtering out the crazies, I mean, my opinion is actually every experience counts. And actually, I love the crazies. People who want to write incredibly detailed, rich reviews, I love. I mean, what we want to have is people get the content that's relevant to them. So one thing we're focused on is getting more personalized, relevant content in front of you. So that's either through friends, through Facebook. It's through filter buttons where we now have added boutique hotels, luxury hotels, budget hotels. So we actually let you sort of parse that way as well. The other piece is looking at, on the reviews itself, what is our history? So you're a senior contributor. We also know like how many cities you visited, how many helpful votes. So you get a bigger profile of who that person is. And I think people who use TripAdvisor more and more sometimes like to look for people who have similar traveler habits to them. So they can say, hey, you know what, I don't trust a person from here who has only traveled to one city. I look for people who have robust content globally, or I look for people who look for value hotels. So I think people are self-selecting as well. But I do think when you have so much scale, what we focus on is how do we get it easier for consumers to find what's right for them. And that's certainly something we're focusing on. Probably today we're even testing something if you happen to be in the right slice, where you're going to see something that gets even more hyper-personalized content for how you like to travel. So definitely going to be something that you'll see lots of innovation around with TripAdvisor. Great question, thanks. And thank you again for being a senior contributor.
Hey, Barbara, I have a quick question. What's next for revenue generation for TripAdvisor?
We have really exciting vacation rentals business. So obviously that's something where we think that there's a lot of upside there. We do business listings, which is our business-to-business category, where we let hoteliers basically buy a website link direct to their website so that they can get traffic directly as opposed to having it go through the online travel agencies. So we're focusing on building that business-to-business connection and building out the vacation rentals business as 2 exciting areas where we think that there's growth.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for everything you've shared. I'm curious, and I think it's great you're bringing 400 new jobs with your new site. I'm in an IT space. So my question's coming from, how are you competing on, how are you attracting the best of the best when you're trying to stay on the cutting edge of innovation with one, in specific your industry, but then in two, being kind of, you know, metro north or west rather said, you know, not really in Kendall Square. So how are you getting the Kendall Square talent out there and in your industry? And then now with so many jobs and trying to stay on the cutting edge.
Great question. So we think a lot about attracting the best talent. We also know that top talent only wants to work with top talent. So one of the challenges has been that we have maintained really rigorous hiring standards, even though it's harder and harder to hire great people because there is more competition now. We have a really great culture. We have, I don't want this to turn into HR talk, but my HR partners will thank me. We have amazing benefits. We have, catered lunches. We have incredible vacation policies. Our engineering practice is really for people who love to be in the weeds, right? We have what engineers would get at a startup, which is full stack engineering. You launch code every week, you see what you have, and you get to play with it. So the type of challenges we offer people are pretty unique. And there are some big brand companies from the West Coast who are out here now, but they just can't offer that type of engagement and real life experience that we can offer. The other thing is, at least for the bigger West Coast brands that have come out here, it's actually really nice to be where headquarters is. And that's where the decision making happens, and working at a founder driven company is incredibly exciting, and having the founder on site is incredibly fun for people, engaging with the person who had all these big ideas to begin with. So I think that people really love TripAdvisor, and so I think that's how we've attracted talent. And then we make it easy by offering shuttles from Kendall Square, shuttles from Harvard Square, and you might have seen our buses going back and forth. There are these green buses. So we do a lot to make it easy for people. But then what we offer is a really cool environment, which gets people out to the burbs as opposed to right here, which in Cambridge.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
I'm a new user and a new contributor, and I love your brand.
Great.
And I had a question really about the speed that you have embraced and the new product launches and ideas. Are those mostly coming from within, or are you hearing from consumers, like with the Meta idea and some of the other changes that I've seen take place?
We do a combo of both. So, with Meta, obviously, it's such a better experience for consumers. So we knew from qual and testing that, of course, people would prefer that. And Kayak has done a brilliant job of, creating that great Meta product and getting tons of people to come to kayak.com to experience it. So we knew that one was one that we had to do. And then, it was really just a business model change, which we had to also take our partners with, because they had built their businesses around the way TripAdvisor worked with them. And so when we make changes, it really impacts these other big companies, and they have to drag their teams at a speed wins pace to make it happen as well, which can be challenging for them. So I think that's one where we had internal and external sort of things coming together. I guess in general, I think we do get some random ideas from consumers here and there, but what we're trying to do is sort of get ahead of consumers and put things in front of them they didn't even know they wanted. And so I think if you asked consumers 2 years ago, hey, would you like a city guides app that's like a travel guide that you can use without roaming charges globally? Like that just doesn't, they don't think that way, but it's been an amazing product. So it's a little of that Steve Jobs thing where it's like they don't know what they want until we put it in front of them, but I also think the insights have to come from consumers, right? The insight is when I'm on the road, I want to have access to my travel guide easily. So I always think it has to be driven in insight, but I don't necessarily think the actual idea comes from them.
Hi, I'm Adrian.
Hi.
I'm an art director at Hill Holliday. I work on a lot of the social stuff there.
Woo!
I have sort of a two-part question. So as far as travel goes, I'm a bit of a, because I'm a creative, I'm a bit of a wanderer. I'm the discovered or that likes to report back. And being that I also work on social, I'm just curious, I know that you're partnered with Facebook. Are you going to be partnering with any other sites like Foursquare or anything of that nature in the future? So that's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question, in terms of reading reviews, and because I am a person that sort of reports back after, I'm curious in terms of, like, I know you get a lot of funny, quirky reviews, but do people get really emotional also? I mean, and taking a vacation can be pretty emotional for most people. I know it is for me. So I was just curious about that as well.
Yeah.
And then third thing, just a funny little tidbit, just a touch on meta, is also, it's a term in Buddhism that means like sharing friendship. So it was like funny to me to hear that. So
that's nice.
There you go. So first of all, can I just say, I had my mic off when you introduced yourself, so that's why I was not hooting and hollering at the end.
I hooted for you.
Thank you.
So your first question, your second question was about the emotional, and your first question was? Yeah, social stuff, yeah. So we actually do check-ins right now already on our app, and we basically built a check-in product, and we also pull in Facebook check-ins. So we are, in terms of Foursquare partnership, I mean, we are always looking at who we should be partnering with in terms of what people are using in market and what content they have or benefits they have that we don't have that we can supplement with. So, you know, specifically, I can't speak to any partnerships that are socially minded or in the social space, but we are always looking, and we partner where it makes sense, or we build it ourselves where it makes sense. In terms of the emotional piece, travel is absolutely an emotional category. I mean, most Americans don't even take their full 2 weeks of vacation. And in Europe, they take all 5 weeks or 6 weeks, depending on country. And but it's a very important part of people's identity and you know, how they relax and engage. And there's actually this amazing study that we love, which is your happiest part of your vacation. This is kind of sad. Is 2 weeks before your vacation, because you're at the emotional arc of thinking about your vacation, dreaming, planning, thinking how great it's going to be away. And then you start sort of cycling down until about 3 days mid-vacation before you come home where you're at your low. And then you start the cycle again. So it's an incredibly emotionally rich category. And people spend a lot of time planning, and there's no do-over, right? If the vacation doesn't work out, you spend a lot of money, and you can't redo it. So it's something we take really seriously in terms of our responsibility to the community to have life experiences that make them happy and fulfill them. But what happens with the reviews is, in fact, correct, where people are usually who use TripAdvisor, they're really thrilled with how it turned out because they felt very smart. And a lot of times the reviews actually reflect back to the reviews that helped them before. So yeah, I saw Marty at the bar. He did make the best margarita. And thanks for the tip about housekeeping. I left some tips, and we got the extra towels. So you can see some reflection with people who used it before. Or there are people who feel like they want to tell the world about a new hotel they didn't, that they didn't feel like had gotten enough accolades. Or they had a bad experience. They want people to avoid it. Maybe it's overrated, or they don't feel like they were treated the way they wanted to be treated. So, I think it is emotional. It's not, and the best reviews are sort of putting the personal flavor in there. And again, that helps you identify, is that someone, with that, am I an iced coffee freak? Well, kind of, but I actually like Mary J. Blige more. So I probably would have been happy with my whole experience at the Aman. But it's a very interesting category in that way. The other interesting stat is, which I love, is 98% of people who returned from a trip said the reviews met their expectations of what they actually encountered, which really goes to that accuracy piece, right? And that's why people come back, because it is a highly accurate site. And without that, people would just use it once and say, that was totally crazy. I'm not using that site again. But fortunately, that hasn't happened. Hi.
This has been great, and I'm 2 weeks away from a vacation to Iceland. So
you're at the peak.
I'm at the peak. Thank you.
Iceland, wow, that's fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So my quick question is, can you talk a little bit more about the kind of 2,000 people and also it being a startup? What's that tension like, and in a senior management role, how do you kind of navigate that?
So it's a great question. I mean, I think what we do at the senior management level is we try to enable lots of information sharing. We do, for example, a weekly meeting called Product Review. anyone in the company, anyone, is allowed to attend this meeting or call in if they're global. And essentially it's what's up. It's all the projects we're about to launch, and it's before they've started to get built. And anyone in the company can criticize it or offer a different point of view or look at the screenshots and say, why is the button here? So it's really an opportunity for transparency and for input. The other thing is that we still have folks who start new in the product side, launch a project within the first 2 weeks of them starting. I mean, all these things sort of just complete the rigor of how we approach things. Globally, same thing. Every project is put through the filter of this product review, and we also do all our dev in Newton. So there's sort of one point of analysis and sort of queue for everything to come through. So there's a lot of rigor around that one queue. But it's definitely always a challenge, right? And we always are saying, hey, how do we do it faster? Why did this take 3 weeks? I mean, when I first came, I was like, wow, we did this whole redesign in 2 months. And my boss said, why did it take 2 months? Why did it take 1 month? And once you sort of flip that on your head, right, and you look at everything in that prism of, well, why couldn't it be faster? That it's a paradigm shift. But it really is top down. I mean, our CEO is really focused on this as the most important thing. And I think if I look around at companies that I admire in tech, they really have the same attitude, right? It's just, you constantly have to be moving forward. And you constantly have to be innovating and moving fast because it is a fast-moving environment. I mean, internet land is only, 97, 95, depending on, what you're thinking about as the beginnings, but it's very, very nascent. I mean, this is a young industry, and just because we are the world's largest now, I mean, doesn't mean that, we can sit around and take 5-week vacations. Although we are pro-vacation at TripAdvisor. Everyone does take vacation. I just want to say that. That's another reason people like to work for us is we all take vacations from senior management down. And we take our full amount, which is a healthy amount. Because it's really important to regroup and to, think about the world outside of the office. So yeah, but to your question, it's a constant focus. We never stop thinking about that.
A little piece of France and Needham.
Yeah.
Vacation-wise. Anybody else?
This is going to be the last question.
Kate has dropped
Barbara
the hammer.
And Karen.
Hi.
Thanks for being here today. I'm going to search your reviews for some alternative to my Aunt Jean's turkey on Thursday.
Oh, good idea.
Any of those strange foreign foods would be a better alternative. I'm just curious, with a customer base that's naturally critical and always looking for 5 buttons, 5 circles, how does that intersect with speed wins culture where 80% right is okay sometimes? And I'm curious what you've learned about the limits of the community in that regard.
Yeah, I mean the community. A lot of the stuff that we do at 80% isn't seen by the community. So every once in a while they might encounter something which is called like a 404 test, where we'll basically put up a link to something like, do you want to see videos? And if they click on that, they get a 404 error. Mm-hmm. That's just a gauge how many people actually want to see videos. So that's like a little test that we do sometimes. But in general, what they see is pretty much the same product all the time. And for them, the core content, can they find the right hotel for them? Do they see the candid photos? And now, with being able to see pricing and availability, that was the thing that consumers did not like about the site, right? The pop-up windows. So now that we've solved that, it's just put us in such a better position with consumers because now it really does make it a pleasant shopping experience for them. And now they really do feel like TripAdvisor is giving them a 5-bubble experience or 5-circle. We call it bubbles, but I like how people can call it whatever they want. But it definitely is something where we try to make our internal sausage making not really obvious to the rest of the world. And on the visual side, we have tried to bring more of that delight and feeling of escape to the site. So we've just brought in some really great new creative talent, and we're going through a bunch of redesigns on the site, but I'm really excited about the direction in terms of giving that escape feeling and those beautiful visuals that make travel so exciting to the site. So lots of awesome stuff happening in 2014.
Great.
Well, thank you, Barbara, and thank you again, Karen, for a 5-bubble CMO breakfast this morning. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thank you.
Happy traveling or cooking or
Great
whatever
job.
your plans are.